There we go. I've been involved with Oxford TEFL for about 10 years now and running the diploma for about 8 of those years. I'm from Scotland originally, and I came over to Spain, where I'm still based, to do my initial teacher training, TEFL training, in 1999, and did my certificate in TESOL with Oxford TEFL back in 1999, which is a long time ago. And after that, I became a bit more involved in the certificate training there, and went on to do my diploma in TESOL and became a Cert TESOL trainee. So I'm just going to kind of carry on as you join. Just going to switch off your video. So as you join, just mute your video and your chat as we kind of do it. Okay, there we go. Okay, right. So before we start, I'd like to know a little bit about you. So I've got some questions for you, and I'd like you to write some answers to these questions in the chat box. The first thing I'd like you to do is tell me where you're from. So if you could tell me, write your country or your city, wherever you're calling from, in the chat box, so you can get to know where everyone is. Somebody from Ukraine, okay. Hi Tash, you're from Ukraine. Maria's from Spain. Hi Regina. Regina works with me at Oxford TEFL. Is that you, Regina? So Regina will be telling you a little bit about the diploma later. Kerala in India. Hi Shinos. Kamel from Algeria. And Hannah's living in Barcelona. Great. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to ask you is if you already have a TEFL qualification. Do you have a certificate in TESOL, a CELTA, a degree in TESOL or English language teaching? Have you already got some kind of qualification? Okay, Cameron's saying no. Anyone else? Okay, so Sheena's did the Cert TESOL last year. Okay, great. And Regina got her Cert TESOL and she's just about to finish her DIP. Great. And Maria has a diploma in TEFL from the University of Toronto. Tash, no. Okay. Good. So this qualification, let's carry on a little bit and tell you a little bit about it. So this webinar is to give you some information about the diploma in TESOL, and some of it, it seems that maybe you've been teaching for a while. So this qualification is kind of a higher level qualification in TESOL. It's not an initial qualification. So for those of you who haven't got a qualification in teaching English, have you got experience? If so, can you write in the chat box? So that's, I think, Kamal and maybe was it Tash? I can't remember. Some of you said you didn't have any official qualifications. So Tash, you've got no experience and no qualifications. So this qualification is probably not for you. You're probably more interested in something called a certificate in TESOL or a CELTA. And that's something that gets you in the door of teaching English as a foreign language. That's your kind of first step. And this diploma is for teachers who have already been teaching for a little while. But hopefully we can give you some insight into what it's like to be an English language teacher. So please feel free to carry on attending, okay? So let me give you some background on what this qualification is. Some of you might know already. So this is an internationally recognised qualification. Let's start with that. Trinity is an examination board based in the UK, and they have exams in a whole host of things, such as teacher training, teacher language proficiency. So you might have heard of the Trinity graded English speaking exams or the integrated skills exams. So they award exams for English language proficiency or teacher training or music or drama. And employers all over the world have heard of Trinity. So when you have a Trinity certificate or diploma, it's internationally recognised. Okay. To give you an idea of where it is, their certificate in TESOL is a level 4 qualification, so it's kind of entry level. And the diploma is level 7, which is the same level as a master's. It's not as long as a master's. It counts for about a third of an MA in ESOL or TESOL. So you can look it up on the Trinity website and you'll see that it's a level 7 qualification in the British National Qualifications Framework. Okay, so it's quite a high level qualification in terms of the theory and the complexity of the assignments and what's expected of the participants in their autonomy. Okay. It's a very practical course. It kind of blends practice and theory. So asks you, in all the different work that you'll do on this course, it asks you to read something, watch something, and then apply it to your teaching. Okay. So, and it also, what does it do? It kind of, why do this qualification? Well, I'm going to ask Regina to share a little bit about how it's helped her develop in a second, if that's okay, Regina. So if Regina, you could get your audio ready, we'll switch you on. So it helps, definitely I think it helps your career development. It helps you move into teacher training, becoming a senior teacher in a school. If you want to get into writing materials or course books, that's something that I did when I got my diploma. I started writing articles as well for methodology sites. And it also just makes you a better teacher. Okay, so it kind of helps you develop your teaching. So let's see if we can kind of find Regina. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen just for a moment. Hi, Regina. Oh, we can hear you. That's great.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. If you can hear Regina, can you just write hello to Regina in the chat box? So Regina has just finished doing her her diploma, or she's about to finish. Sorry, Regina. So if you've got any...
I soon hope to be saying I have finished.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm just finishing up on Unit 2, which is a project. So I'm sure Nicola will talk a little bit about the content later on. Should I just go into it, Nicola, then?
Well, I think maybe what you could do is we're kind of talking at the moment about why do this qualification,
yeah,
what you get out of it. So maybe you could share with people here what you've got out of it so far.
But I think from the start, like when I did the certificate course, because I had already been teaching for a little bit, I really liked the idea of eventually knowing that TEFL was going to be a career for me. That I wanted to eventually become involved in also tutoring. So broadening the aspects I teach by not just teaching English, but also teaching others how to teach. So that's something that luckily I was able to go into pretty much as soon as I was done with 3 of the 4 units. There was a need for more tutors in the school, and I've been tutoring since then. But not just with regards to opening doors to new positions in TEFL, but I think throughout the course, without even completing it, as soon as you start, it kind of pushes you to experiment with a lot of teaching methodologies and different aspects and tools in the classroom. And I think it just equips you with so many more activities to keep your lessons varied and to try new things, which I think sometimes, because we have got so much work to do, we tend to stick to our comfort zone and just use what we've been using for a while that tends to work instead of trying out new things.
Good, thanks, Regina. We're going to come back to Regina a little bit later with questions. What I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about the course, if that's okay, Regina. And then, you know, once people have a better idea of what the course is about, then they can maybe have questions for you as somebody who's done it. Somebody
no problem.
who's on it. Can you mute your mic just now so that... just in case it gets a bit of feedback. Thank you. Okay. So we've kind of said what the diploma is and why do it. And the next question is, who is it for? And we've already said it's for teacher with some experience. So the minimum is 2 years full-time experience. And also we kind of expect you to have a certain level of language awareness when you come on to the course. I always tell people when I'm interviewing them for the diploma, that they should be able to open up any course book, like English File or Cutting Edge or something, English Results, an advanced level course book, and look at all the grammar and vocabulary and listening and speaking and writing and reading skills, and understand what all those terms are. You might not feel like you're perfect at teaching all those things yet, but you definitely know what the present perfect continuous is. You know what the rules are, you know how to teach it, you might know how to use a timeline to explain the kind of the use of it and the function, and be able to explain the form of it as well. That's our kind of starting point for that. Our expectations in terms of pronunciation, because this is also quite a big part of the course, they're a lot lower. We kind of find that people don't develop as much in their knowledge and their practice of how they help their learners improve their pronunciation. So we go back to basics a little bit, but maybe that's how you feel. So I've got another question for you now in the chat box. Does that describe you? Do you feel like you're quite comfortable with the rules of English grammar? You know how to teach vocabulary. You're quite confident opening a book and teaching a listening lesson. Maybe you're not so comfortable with pronunciation, but you know, you've learnt the basics. Hannah, 13 years teaching. Yes. Okay, great. You must be pretty expert then. Regina, way more comfortable now. Yes. Yeah, I definitely felt like that post-diploma. I could walk into any class and answer any grammar question without feeling a little bit nervous about what questions I was going to get asked. Carl, 24 years teaching young learners. That's brilliant. Veteran teacher. You must have learned so much. Okay. Tash, not sure. But Hannah says she's a bit lazy. Well, you can't be lazy if you go to do the diploma, that's for sure. Good. So that gives you an idea of the starting point. We also want you to have some practical experience. As I said before, the diploma is very practical in how it assesses you. And the more practical experience you have, the better equipped you are to answer all the questions in the exam that we'll talk about in a minute, and to be able to talk about your teaching with an examiner, and bring all your great experience to the table. So the diploma is not just about learning new things, which Regina spoke about. I think it's also about consolidating what you already know and thinking, right, okay, so that's why that works well when I do it in class. And really understanding your own practice a lot better and feeling good about what you already do. Some of you here are teaching young learners, others might be teaching business English or other things. I think you can apply the diploma to any context. You can come to the diploma from any context. I think if you've taught kids and adults, it can help. But the idea with a diploma is that you can apply it to any context. So if you're answering questions in an exam or trying something out on our course, you can do that with kids or adults or teens, or business English or English for academic purposes. At the moment, we've got 38 teachers doing the diploma right now. And some of them are doing online teaching. Some of them are teaching kids or very young learners. Some of them are teaching English for academic purposes, business English, all sorts of English. So, you know, you can come from any context and apply it to any context. Okay, so let's go into what is the diploma. What does it consist of? Well, it consists of 4 units that you're assessed on. And here they are. Okay, so there's a written exam, 3 hours, and in that exam you are tested on your knowledge of language, your knowledge of teaching, and your knowledge of teacher development. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about how we prepare you for these 4 units that you're assessed on. Unit 2 is a collection of research projects, which Regina was talking about nearly having finished earlier. And these research projects include 3 things. There is one project where you observe other teachers. There's one project where you observe your own teaching. So it's kind of like a teaching journal. You reflect on something you want to try out and experiment with and do differently. And the third one is much more objective. So it's answering a question that you have about teaching and learning. And you might do that via a survey or a questionnaire or an interview or a case study. So it's bringing more objective data to the table to answer a question that you have. Now you choose the titles for these projects. So this is a great opportunity to personalize the course and explore something that you've been interested in. Okay. The third unit is a phonology interview, which terrifies some people. So that's something maybe you could ask Regina about. She got a distinction for her phonology, if I remember correctly. So maybe you've got some questions you can ask her later about that. And the last part is 5 lessons where you're observed and assessed either by myself or one of my colleagues. And one of those 5 lessons is observed by a Trinity examiner. Okay, so that's assessing your teaching, you in the classroom, writing a lesson plan, being observed, and afterwards evaluating your lesson. Okay, so how do we prepare you for this? We prepare you in this way. We do a blended course. So we do 6 months online. It's very much a group course. You're in groups in a Moodle platform, which you might be familiar with. It's an online learning platform. And you're interacting with all the other people on the course, talking about things in discussion forums. This is a platform that we actually use on the diploma. And I'll show you later how everyone can be on video at once, and it's a lot of fun. So we have video conferences, there are assignments, and there are opportunities to go and try things out and report back on them. Okay, so that's the online thing, and that's divided into these week-long modules. There are about 20 modules. Okay, and then we move into the assessment, which is very flexible according to like when you can do the different units that we just looked at. So you've got these 4 units here. When you take these and where you take them is quite flexible, and I can give you more information about that later if you've got any questions. We've got a brilliant team of tutors who will be there with you in this online 6-month online part of the course to help kind of push you and support you and ask you questions and give you ideas. And you can find out more about those tutors on our website. But we've got some great people. And we've also got these guests who come on to the course, like Adrian Underhill and Scott Thornbury. They come and guest and help you with your ideas as well, interacting with you in forums or maybe answering your questions. I think one guy, Jamie Keddy's already made a podcast for us this year talking about teacher talk. So we have a lot of experts to help you get better at your teaching. And then there's ongoing support. It doesn't just finish after that online, but I'm always here to help you as well as course director. And people are always contacting me on Skype or email or even WhatsApp these days. So that's kind of how we help you. This is how our course works. Okay, so now we're going to move over to you a little bit. That's a lot of information to take in quite quickly. So I'd like to kind of stop sharing my screen just for a minute and move into a format where we can sort of all see each other's names, just so that you can get an idea of how we run these live events. And this is an opportunity for you to ask me and Regina questions again. Okay, so if you just give me a second, I'm going to switch the screen around a little bit. And if you wish, you can start your video and your audio, or you can just write in the chat box. Okay, it's up to you. Okay. Hold on. Okay, let me just see this. So we should be able to see Regina there. Hi, Regina.
Hi. Sorry, it's a bit dark in the room I'm in. Light's not doing great.
The others, if you choose to, I think if you, the rest of you share your screens and audios, you might pop up here. If not, you can ask people questions in the chat box. Okay, Regina, can you see the chat box as well?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, okay. So Kamal's asked, once I start the course, is it possible to stop it for a time, for a reason or another? Yes, it is. Yeah, people have issues that come up all the time and they stop. It's not an individual course, it's a group course, the online part. So we don't advise that you stop that. It's designed to be 6 months and you're all in there together in your groups. So that part is the least flexible thing. But obviously, if issues come up, we do have times where people can't continue and then they rejoin a future course. Okay. Have you got any other questions for us while we're here? I don't know why you're huge and I'm small, Regina. I don't know.
You're big on my screen, yeah. So
Am I?
Because you're listening to me in theory.
Maybe, yeah. It's interesting when I watch the recording, who's going to be huge and who's going to be small. Anyone else got any questions? Either about what we do online, how it works, or the pronunciation part, or whatever else you think. Generally takes a little while for people to write, so let's just wait. How are your projects going, Regina? Well, I've got you here. Oh, here we go. How many hours per week approximately? So 2 sides of the story here. I say to candidates 10 to 14 hours, depending on the week and other factors. It kind of fluctuates a little bit. What would you say, Regina?
I think I agree. Definitely consider it kind of like a 20-hour-a-week course, but I guess it also depends on each person. Some are really fast readers and can quickly skim through a text and be able to get the gist and do the work that's required connected to that module. I'm quite a bit of a perfectionist, so maybe I took a little longer completing the tasks and assignments. But yeah, definitely at least 2-3 hours per day.
Okay. And it also fluctuates depending on the module itself. Some of the modules are a bit lighter. Other modules ask you to go and try things out in lessons, so maybe that's a little bit more demanding on your time. Hi, somebody switched on their video. Hello. So I suppose it depends. Do you get a grade at the end or just pass, fail? You get a pass, fail, or distinction. And there's talk of introducing a merit grade as well. You'll know your numerical grades, and you do get a number for each of the 4 units, but that doesn't appear on your final certificate. So that's kind of how it works. And we kind of give you an idea of how you're getting on as you move through the online course. Perhaps the biggest part of each module is an assignment. And we mark all of those assignments using Trinity's criteria. So say the assignment for 1 week might be writing a lesson plan or reflecting on a lesson. You would, we'll share Trinity's assessment criteria with you and ask you to do that assignment with that in mind. And then the tutor will mark it using that criteria, so that as you're going through the course, the online part, you know exactly how you're going to be assessed, and you know where you are in terms of this benchmark that is this level 7 qualification, whether you're just below it, at it, or above it. Okay, so you get an idea. I have an experience with the TKT will help you with the CERT course, and it will definitely help you with your knowledge of teaching English. But you really need to do a little bit more than this. I mean, it all depends on your experience and other qualifications that you've got. It's definitely a good starting point, or it's a good addition if you've already done a local qualification in TESOL or TEFL. But it is quite a big jump from, if you're thinking about language, say the TKT is like a KET or a PET exam. The diploma is like proficiency. I don't know if that's kind of some analogy that you might be able to see. but it's a very different thing. And Moodle is there for Cert TESOL before getting started. Yeah, there's a bit of reading for the diploma before you start. The whole online part, she knows, is actually in the Moodle, but it's much more interactive, and also we use this platform as well, which is about the only thing that's outside the Moodle. So you'll be in there interacting in forums, you know, watching videos of your tutor talking. Everything is there in one place. Hannah's asking if she needs to teach larger classes. You can do kind of 90% of the course with one-to-ones, but one of the projects that I mentioned actually asks you to teach groups. We have got around this by giving a clear proposal to Trinity saying why it's more relevant for a candidate to do that project with one-to-ones, and they've accepted that. They do make exceptions. But the general rule is that you do it with group classes. But everything else you can do one-to-one. I mean, how you're assessed, you have to be assessed with groups. The teaching practice, you have to teach groups of 8 or more. So if you're doing one-to-ones, Hannah, it's probably a good idea to come into Oxford TEFL in Barcelona, because that's where you're based. Maybe a couple of weeks or a few weeks before you do the teaching practice, or even before that, and maybe do a few classes. Just to get back into the swing of that general English kind of type of teaching. Do I need to teach adults or children doing the course? You don't need to, no. You can apply everything to your own context. Maybe Shinos was asking about the Moodle, Regina. How did you find the Moodle? What did you think were the kind of benefits of that online part of the course?
Yeah, it was really, really good to be able to stay in touch with others. I'm one of those persons that doesn't love online courses because I participate lots in classes and tend to ask questions if I have any. So the Moodle was really nice because you could send private messages to tutors if you have a question or weren't clear on something, or in the forums just to exchange ideas and bounce them off each other. And again, also checking in case the tutor had already commented on something, you could just give it a go and maybe the question had already been answered.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of interaction, isn't there? And your tutors are kind of there as well. Hannah, yeah, so just to clarify for Hannah, the online part of the course doesn't count towards the final assessment. It's kind of preparing you for it. So you can take everything that you're doing on the online part and try it out in one-to-one in small groups. But the Trinity guidelines state that for the teaching assessment, you have to do it with groups. Okay, so you would come into the centre in Barcelona and we provide groups. And you join all the your classmates on the course, a bit like you did on the Cert TESOL. Okay, good. Any other questions? No. I'm teaching IELTS for a year. How will DIP TESOL be helpful to apply for the IELTS examiner post? Well, the diploma is just going to help you with any kind of job application, I think. I know that in India, Trinity's got a really good name as well. I think it's just a kind of marker to an employer that you're at that level of knowledge and experience, that you've studied assessment for a start, that you can become a teacher trainer on a certificate course with a DIP TESOL. You can become materials writer. It's kind of an indicator that you're at a very high level of knowledge and practice in industry. So it would definitely put you ahead of other candidates for sure. There aren't many people in India with a DIP TESOL or a Delta. I think it'd be a huge advantage. And you kind of learn a lot about assessment on the course. There's a whole module on assessment and testing. And it's one of the things that can come up in the written exam. So we kind of do a lot of reading around that topic. So you'd be better informed about the whole area that is testing. Anything else to anyone? Feel free to just... do you know, what do you think? Regina also works as a career advisor for people. And I don't know if you have taken part in any conversations about this. Loads of people ask me this. What's your kind of understanding of the difference, Regina? Do you know anything about this?
Well, technically, they're the same level and they're the same qualification. I tend to use the analogy of it being like Pepsi and Coke. Same thing, different brand. But the DIP TESOL course, I do know, has a stronger focus in phonology, if I'm not mistaken, right, Nicola?
Yeah. Oh, somebody's making a lot of noise. Let me just check. So I'm just gonna... Oh, I don't know where that's coming from. Sorry. Okay. So the differences between the CERT, the Delta and the DipTESOL are, yes, that the DipTESOL covers phonology. It's got a much bigger emphasis on phonology. It's more practical in how it assesses you. So, for example, when you come to do the teaching practice with the Delta, you have to write a very, very big lesson plan with an essay in it and everything. The Trinity lesson plan is much smaller and more practical. The whole assessment ethos is towards practice more than theory. That the balance is a little bit different. The Delta is a bit more academic, I suppose, in how it assesses you. They cover the same ground. You know, the content is essentially the same. You're reading the same books, the same articles, but how it assesses you and the priority or kind of, yeah, the priority of including pronunciation at the heart of it, not just in the pronunciation in the unit 3 assessment, but also in your teaching practice. You're expected to show the examiner that you can teach pronunciation. So those are the main differences. Any others? Any other questions? No. For some reason, Sheena's is taking center stage on my screen now. I don't know about you. No? Let's just give it one more minute.
There's a question from Sheena's, Nicola. I don't know if you can see it or not.
What do we study during the face-to-face sessions? Regina, you can answer this. You don't really study anything, you just do.
Yeah, it's the practical part of the course. I mean, the face-to-face is after the online modules have been completed when you're preparing for that final face-to-face part. We do have review sessions to help us prepare for the Unit 1 exam and be better prepared to tackle the teaching practice assessment and phonology interview, but it's mainly do, not so much study, as you said, Nicola.
It's a bit like your CERT TESOL, she knows. You're in there every day. It's the same amount of intensity. Your lesson planning, and I'm actually coming over to Kerala, hopefully, in November to help you all. So the idea is that you're lesson planning, you're preparing your lessons, you're reflecting on the last lesson, you're teaching, you're being observed and assessed, you're observing your peers and learning from them, and just generally kind of sharing ideas with all the other people on the course. So it's very similar to the CERT TESOL, but there aren't any assignments or anything. It's just teaching and reflecting. And then right at the end of the face-to-face, the Trinity examiner comes and watches your final lesson and does the phonology interview. Okay. Anything else? No. Okay. So, if there are no more questions, I'm just going to share my screen a little bit. Oh, there's another one. Are there sessions together? Hannah, that's a good question. The teaching practice can happen in different ways if you're in or near the centre. So if you're in Barcelona or Prague or Kerala, not this year, but in future years, it can happen a little bit differently. But that's something maybe we can talk about afterwards. You can, for example, Regina did some of our teaching assessments before the summer, and then she came and joined in one of the groups in the summer and did more lessons where she was observed and assessed. So you can do it in more flexible ways if you're near an Oxford TEFL centre. Okay. You'd obviously have to come into the centre to do those lessons if you're only teaching small groups. If you were to be teaching larger groups in your own classes, then a tutor can go out to you if you're quite close to one of her centres. Okay, but it definitely is a kind of option. Okay, let me just go back to the PowerPoint then.
Sorry, Nicola, I noticed there's another question from Shinos for me, I think.
Yep.
Just a sec, the chat's need to close. What I learned additionally, apart from the Cert TESOL, the diploma course goes into a lot more detail when it comes to grammar and phonology. So in the certificate course, you go over the phonemes and connected speech a little bit, but I feel like it's just kind of scratching on the top of the surface. You will be able to understand each of the concepts so well that you can eventually use it in class and teach your students about it comfortably, and use phonemic script because you'll have lots of practice during the course as well, instead of having to look up every word. Sorry, same goes for grammar. It's gone over in much more depth, and so that, again, you don't have to resort to resources so that you can be able to explain it. And methodologies in a lot more detail, a variety of them. And what I love the most, as I said before, is to actually put them into practice and experiment with them. So I think it's kind of like the Cert TESOL times 10, because you go for the same things, but in so much more detail.
Yeah, exactly. And Hannah, I don't think it's one thing or another. It's everything. Everything contributes to teaching. So it's, teaching skills better, teaching pronunciation, integrating pronunciation into every lesson. And as you move through the online part of the course, you'll start to see how all these things connect and how they're all important. So it's not that there's just it's kind of bringing everything together at a much higher level. So that's the kind of how it's different. I mean, I think, Shinos, if you think about the Cert TESOL as something which kind of really just starts you on this path to more communicative language teaching, the Dip TESOL takes you to a level where you can train other teachers to get better at teaching. But you can write books and articles about how to become a better teacher. So it's a whole other level. It's a big jump, but it's kind of a very worthwhile jump, I think. Why is pronunciation given more focus in the Dip TESOL? I don't know. I think it deserves its place, doesn't it? I think it's such a often neglected part of teaching in so many resources and materials and language centres and schools, and in assessment as well. But it's actually one of the things which impedes comprehension and communication more than bad grammar or not knowing the word. People can usually talk their way around that, but if their pronunciation is poor, they can't be understood. I recently taught a learner in Barcelona, maybe Regina knows this learner as well. He's I can't remember his name now, he's from Vietnam, and he joined a B2 C1 group in our school in Barcelona. And in fact, some of the language he was coming out with was almost proficiency level. He's coming out with all these colloquial phrases, and he's writing, loads of vocabulary, but nobody could understand him, including me, because his pronunciation was so bad. And so I think it's rightly been given a much bigger place at this level to make sure that teachers get to this stage in their experience, their knowledge, and their practice to be able to address it much more effectively. Somebody taking pictures of us here. Hello. What about TEFL? Yeah, the TEFL is a really good course, isn't it? Have you done it, Camille? This is something that will get you towards the diploma, and it's definitely a good complement to it, but it's not a substitute. But it is a worthwhile course, I think. I've heard lots of good things about it. Is it based on RP or no? Oh, we look at all these things, you know, so we don't base it on one thing or another, and that's a big part of what we talk about, is what is the right variety of pronunciation to teach. What is, you know, we talk about accent, we talk about variety, we talk about a whole host of things, but there isn't one thing that we kind of use. We don't adhere to a model. We question the models, and that's kind of why it's a level 7 qualification. Okay, good. So I'm going to stop there because I think we've covered a lot of ground. Our next course starts on the 6th of February. So if you're interested, you can get in touch with us at that email address, TESOL@Oxford TEFL, or you can go ahead and fill in our application form at the Oxford TEFL website. Any suggestion for Nicola? Yeah, drop me an email. That's probably the best thing, and maybe we can have a one-to-one Skype chat, you know, and talk about all your questions. A lot of the time people aren't quite sure about the course, so I set up a kind of 20-minute Skype call to give them a bit more information so they know exactly what they're getting into and how the course is going to benefit them as well.
I can give a super quick tip.
Yeah.
If they don't teach any advanced or higher level classes, definitely start looking at higher level grammar. And if you don't currently use the phonemic chart in your lessons, start experimenting with it, for sure.
Great. Yeah, that's a really good tip, actually, because it'll force you to go and teach some more complex language and learn more about that as well. Yeah, Hannah, feel free. I think I might know you, Hannah Moon. The name rings a bell. But do get in touch, and I'm more than happy. Get in touch with Fran at TESOL@Oxford TEFL, and she'll put you in touch with me. And we can go from there. Oh, someone's typing. Glad it helped. There we go. Great. Okay, so that's it for now. You know where to get a hold of us. You've got a lot more information about the course. So thanks for coming, and I hope it was useful. I'm going to stop the meeting now, but feel free to get in touch with us at any point. And I'd like to thank Regina so much for coming along, helping out, and giving the other perspective, which I think is really important. Yeah, the recording will be going up, Camille, for sure. Okay, Fran will be putting it on the website and sharing it on social media, I'm sure. So I'm quite glad my screen is so little in it. Okay, good. Well, have a good evening or morning wherever you are in the world, and we'll be in touch. Okay, bye.